watch all that old shit. When they owned us, white folks are some happy white people. They used to waltz and they had to smile. Look at them now, they're so depressed and sad. Niggas got away. Let slavery come back tomorrow. Well, they don't want us in their little areas and all that shit. Ain't that funny? Don't want us in their neighborhood. When they own us, we was in their house. What kind of bullshit is that? Oh, I can't come in the neighborhood, but when you own me, I was warming up your bed. Now there's something wrong with this picture. Shit, when they own us, we had 12 and 14 jobs. Now that we free, I'm so sorry, there's no jobs. Mad because we got away. Let slavery come back in tomorrow. They'll be on that porch. Welcome home. Get your rest. You got to go to those 12 jobs in the morning. Your room is just like it was. We haven't changed it. But what about the neighborhood? No, your neighborhood's our neighborhood. It is the truth and nothing but the truth. And they can't handle it. That's too goddamn bad. It is. I'm sorry. I don't try to defend the truth. It defends itself. And if you're too stupid and too ignorant and don't know and too slow, because a lot of people are brainwashed. That's that Willie Lynch shit. And slow. A lot of niggas go, oh, I went to Yale. Well, nigga, you should have went to jail and learned something. Because you think you so, oh, I'm so above it. Yeah, be that black skin. I don't care who you are. Brian Gumble. Take your black ass and be somewhere at the wrong time. You'll see what you are. Like that nigga they drug all through the thing and killed and cut his head off. He was just a nigga. Any nigga when I was on that road, they'd kill. So y'all just are slow. You better get hip to it. And it ain't even about hating white people, because we all have white blood in us. Thank you, slavery, okay? Thank you, slavery. Ain't nobody white don't have no black blood in them up there talking that shit. Oh, I don't want the racists mixing. Well, you shouldn't have brought niggas over here and screwed them. And that real white man knows I'm telling the truth. He knows. That's why he likes to look at his family tree. Just look at it. Because if he shakes it, a nigger will fall out.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Tess for Freeform Friday. You know, we have to wrap the week up with a little potpourri and your favorite online intellectual party. So there's a lot to get into, and let's dive right in it. Let's start off talking about Jared Kushner.
So let's talk about pardons. Because given what Jared Kushner said he was doing in the final days of his father-in-law's administration, I suspect we're going to be hearing a lot more about pardons in the near future. And this might surprise you, but I have a feeling that much of what we learn is actually going to be good news on the justice front. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So, did you see Jared Kushner's videotaped testimony at the first public hearing of the J6 committee investigating the insurrection? Boy, it was damaging. And it was damaging not only to Donald Trump, but it was damaging to Jared Kushner himself, actually for a couple of reasons. Here is the New York Times reporting about Jared Kushner's testimony. Headline, Kushner said he thought White House counsel was whining when he spoke of resigning. And that article begins, Jared Kushner, former President Donald J. Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor, was featured prominently in videotaped testimony saying that he was engrossed in pushing through dozens of pardons at the end of the administration and dismissed threats of resigning by White House counsel as whining. The video showed Representative Liz Cheney asking Kushner about repeated threats to resign made by White House counsel Pat Cipollone over questionable conduct by Mr. Trump. Question from Cheney. Jared, are you aware of instances where Pat Cipollone threatened to resign? Answer from Kushner. Like I said, my interest at the time was on trying to get as many pardons done as possible, Mr. Kushner said. And I know him and the team were always saying, we're going to resign, we're not going to be there if this happened or if that happens. So I kind of took it up to be just whining, to be honest with you. You know, I know the New York Times went with the headline about how when the White House counsel threatened to resign, Jared just sort of dismissed it as whining. I actually think there could have been an alternate headline for this story, and it could have read, Kushner reveals he was feverishly working on pardons at the end of Trump's term. So, yes, the clip of Kushner's testimony was offered for one reason. It was offered to show that when the White House counsel was threatening to resign because of Donald Trump's conduct of, trying to corruptly overturn the results of the presidential election, Kushner didn't have the time of day for it, just dismissed it as being whining because, he was busy with his nose in a pile of Trump pardons that he needed to get out before his father-in-law left office. And friends, it probably won't surprise you that within the Department of Justice, there's an office called the Office of the Pardon Attorney, where proposed pardons go through a formal and rigorous vetting process to see if the applicant is worthy of executive clemency, which is either commuting someone's sentence, which a president can do, reducing a sentence or wiping it away altogether, or granting a full pardon, which wipes away the conviction entirely. And law-abiding presidents and law-abiding presidential administrations go through the Office of the Pardon Attorney when a pardon is being considered, and it is put through that rigorous vetting process. Here's just a little bit of how the Office of the Pardon Attorney assesses possible pardons. Office of the Pardon Attorney. When the president proposes to exercise his or her executive clemency, in other words, a sentence commutation or a full pardon, the case is directed to the Office of the Pardon Attorney for review. There are 5 standards that are applied. For example, the defendant, the person who ordinarily has been charged, convicted, and sentenced, must be in good standing during their sentence and must await a period of at least 5 years before applying for a pardon. Now, that can be waived, but there are other factors. One of the factors, the individual's acceptance of responsibility and self-awareness of how serious their actions were. Another factor, referrals and recommendations from people in powerful positions, like politicians, attorneys, judges, and even victims, are looked over carefully to decide if an individual is worthy of a pardon. And there are many other factors. I'll post a link in the description of this video to some information about the Office of the Pardon Attorney. But do you think this pile of pardons that Jared Kushner was feverishly working to get out before his father?
If everybody's so innocent, why was he feverishly working so hard to get all these pardons out? Who knows? Who knows? But on top of that, we're not leaving the Trump family just yet. Trump's attorneys have asked for a delay indefinitely.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Well, the moment we were all expecting has now arrived. In a late-night filing Monday, 30 minutes before the deadline, Donald Trump's attorneys formally asked for his trial in the classified documents case to be postponed indefinitely, citing his 2024 presidential run and his inability to get a fair trial. Trump's team asked Florida District Judge Aileen Cannon to reject the Justice Department's proposed trial start in December. His lawyers argued that putting the ex-president on trial this year would be, and I quote, unreasonable, telling, and would result in a miscarriage of justice. Trump's lawyers cried political persecution in their reasoning before the court. Quote, the court now presides over a prosecution advanced by the administration of a sitting president against his chief political rival, himself a leading candidate for the presidency of the United States. They also asked for the trial to be held after the election to ensure a fair jury and fair trial. We are now expecting the Justice Department, Jack Smith's office, to respond to that indefinite delay request. In fact, Trump's attorneys and federal prosecutors are actually going to meet face-to-face 1 week from today in the first pretrial meeting in the case to discuss the classified material. The trial scheduling issue presumably will come up. But when the sweeping indictment was unsealed last month, remember, Special Counsel Jack Smith made extremely limited remarks, kind of got in, got out. It was the first and only remarks he has publicly made about the case, but he did make sure in that small amount of time to stress the fact that he would seek a speedy trial both for the public and the accused.
It's very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused.
Now the accused, Donald Trump, is asking to delay that speedy trial, a right he is granted, just like any other criminal defendant in this country. He's not just asking to delay it, he's flat out asking to push it off until after the election. Now, let's take a step back here. We knew this was coming, right? You knew it, I knew it, we all knew it. This was always the plan. It was telegraphed over the last few years by Donald Trump and Trump's associates, as we saw in lots of different reporting from different sources. In fact, the New York Times reported last July, during the height of the January 6th hearings, that Trump had accelerated his planning for office as the pair of federal investigations had intensified. And it was reported last summer that Trump had told associates that the legal protections of being president were front of mind for him in his decision to run for the office again. Donald Trump knew there was a good chance of being indicted in the multitude of investigations he faced. And he hoped that declaring his candidacy would be able to cloak him in a shield of invincibility of political interference and political persecution. And so he did it. That's just what he did. He announced his 2024 run for office on November 15th, 2022. An announcement coming nearly 2 years before the 2024 presidential election. That's early. But the point was to get it in there. I'm now a candidate. You can't touch me. Delay the trials, who knows how many, win the election, dismiss the case, stay out of prison.
An indefinite delay causes harm. Now, the reason I think he really wants to delay it past the 2024 election is this idea of no trial. What does that mean? What it means is if Trump becomes president, he gets to appoint the new attorney general who could simply dismiss the case altogether. And I think that's the ultimate goal here.
You can see that's exactly what's going on last night's filing. I mean, think of it this way. Donald Trump is literally running for his freedom. He is running to be president to stay out of prison. Those are the stakes for Donald Trump, and he understands them as such. And the key to achieve that end is to delay as much as possible. In fact, his team has already tried that in fighting this investigation. Remember last summer, after the FBI executed that search warrant on Trump's Florida Beach Club, one of the first things Trump's lawyers did in response was to sue to stop the Justice Department from reviewing the documents it had found. Their own documents, government documents. Trump argued the search was politically motivated and asked the judge to appoint a third party to review the seized materials. In other words, that was his effort to delay the investigation, keep the FBI from looking at the evidence in this cockamamie legal theory. And guess what? It worked for a time. Trump's motion was granted by the same judge who is now overseeing his criminal trial, Judge Aileen Cannon, who herself was appointed by none other than Donald Trump, the defendant. She was randomly assigned to the case last month, but back in August, she gave him this completely unprecedented break from normal criminal procedure. Shocking, really. And she agreed to appoint a special counsel or a third party to comb through the trove of documents the FBI had discovered at Mar-a-Lago. And it was consequential. It delayed the Justice Department's access to some of that evidence for a few weeks until an appeals court overturned the decision of Cannon in a scathing, absolutely eviscerating ruling. But here's the thing. In this case, especially, every week matters. This guy, this twice indicted ex-president, he's got to get to the election. It's like a chase movie where he's running from the law. Except what's at stake here is not just Donald Trump's prison time, but our own constitutional integrity. Can we actually hold this man, this powerful man, accountable as if he were any other citizen? And so here we are. We got 16 months on the clock. 16 months away from the 2024 election. Donald Trump has been indicted, in this case, on 37 felony counts. He lucked out and managed to get this same judge who gave him a break last year acceded to his request for delay. And she now has a monumental decision before her, Judge Eileen Cannon. Last time she sided with Trump to the consternation and criticism of just about the entire legal community and the appellate court above her. The question now is, has she learned anything? Will she further collude?
Whether or not she will further collude is still up in the air. Now, the president of the United States does have presidential immunity, and that is what Trump is banking on. This is also why so many people are pissed off with Merrick Garland, because the moment that it started to be evident that Trump was involved in January 6th, all these different things, he should not have delayed the investigation. He did not have to go public with the investigation, but he should not have delayed it. Because, excuse me, it was less than 30 days later that Trump was no longer in office. The inauguration happened for Joe Biden. We could already be in a courtroom right now. But Trump is trying to push it off so that he can avoid being fully prosecuted in a court of law and going to jail. But all they're going to do is stick a pin in it. And he can't get everything delayed. But you also have to realize Trump is extremely, extremely uneducated. So in his mind, merely running gives him immunity. He hasn't even secured the GOP nomination. Now, do I think that he will secure that nomination? Of course. Of course. They are afraid of him until he gets clinked. It's making me wonder what other types of files he has. But let's get on to some more Trump news. You know, he's one of the few gifts that keeps on giving, and we cannot seem to find the gift receipt to return him.
This is Michael Popak, Legal AF, breaking news. The Arizona Attorney General, Chris Mays, who used to be a Republican but became a Democrat in 2019, is cleaning up the House, then getting affairs in order in Arizona, and she's going after Donald Trump in her own investigation as to his efforts, along with Rudy Giuliani, 24 other people, and the fake electors and the chair people and party leadership of the GOP in Arizona. She's going after them all for voter fraud to support the integrity of the vote in Arizona. She feels, as the Attorney General, the top prosecutor for the state, that she has no choice but to do this. We heard about that she was going to start these efforts back in March, but frankly, it went silent as we watched Jack Smith and the Department of Justice sort of get out of the chute first and interview more than 24 Arizonians, including the fake electors, and others, Rusty Bowers, the former Speaker of the House of Arizona, about phone calls that Donald Trump made with or without Rudy Giuliani to interfere with the vote, the fake elector scheme, which was put together along with 6 other battleground states in order to throw a monkey wrench into democracy. This is the focus of Chris Mays and the Arizona Attorney General's office. Some people might be thinking, well, aren't the feds taking care of this? Well, they are. And in fact, a number of attorney generals in the same position as Chris Mays, as in, let's say, Michigan, New Mexico, Wisconsin, those attorney generals made their referrals to the Department of Justice and to Merrick Garland back in January of 2022, right on the heels of the Jan 6 committee, arguing to the as referral parties that the federal government was in the best position to investigate these crimes, and that led to Merrick Garland ultimately appointing Jack Smith. But Arizona has its own special brew of problems when it comes to attorney generals and elections. And I assume that's the giant broom that Chris Mays is trying to wield here to clean up the mess that is Arizona. What am I talking about? The predecessor at the attorney general position in Arizona is Mark Brnovich. Mark Brnovich wanted to be the senator, the federal senator from the great state of Arizona, but he lost. But before he did, and when he was in this twilight lame duck period where he was leaving the attorney general office and running for the Senate, he had his office investigate allegations of voter fraud being made primarily by Donald Trump and his henchmen. And just as Donald Trump learned from two separate independent consultancies that he hired that there was no voter fraud in Arizona or anyplace else, there were.
Every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up, and they stay there, and they say yeah, and they stay there, cause all I do is win, and if you going in.
Yeah, first of all, I can't imagine, nor do I want to imagine, Drumpf, the tangerine tyrant, running, but you can't run from all these states. You cannot run from all these charges. Like, Trump looked back in history at Reagan and Nixon. We're not even going to go further back in history than that because there have been quite a few corrupt presidents. But regarding corruption and racism and just problematic behavior, he was like, here, hold my beer. Well, actually, hold my Diet Coke. And just took, like, I don't think this is what he had in mind when he said that he would make history, but hey, a win is a win, right? They always say, even bad press is good press, huh? And for everybody going, well, how would that work if he is sentenced to prison? He has a Secret Service. That would mean the Secret Service would have to be in prison. Child, they have solitary confinement and monitors. And it's not like, oh, my diaper. That's right. And I mean, he has a diet that's shit already. He serves cold KFC on his private plane. He eats McDonald's damn near daily. Well-done steaks with ketchup. I know toddlers that have a more mature palate than him. Then had the nerve to recently say, what's a blizzard? Boy. Now, you may have caught, or you may not have, the FBI director's hearing in Congress this week. This is a bit of a long one, so turn up your volume and take this time to go get a beverage and your snacks if you haven't already, but pay close attention.
Even if you believe, as Chairman Jordan claims, that President Trump has committed no crime, surely we can agree that it is dangerous and profoundly irresponsible to have taken these documents from the White House and left them unsecured in Mar-a-Lago. Again, don't take just my word for it. Trump's Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, said that the former president's handling of this information put U.S. service members' lives and their national security at risk. And Trump's handpicked Attorney General Bill Barr, with whom I agree on very little, hit the nail on the head when he described the former president's legal troubles as, quote, entirely of his own making. He had no right to those documents. The government tried for over a year, quietly and with respect, to get them back, and he jerked them around. When he faced a subpoena, he didn't raise any legal arguments. He engaged in a course of deceitful conduct. That was a clear crime if those allegations are true, close quote. The former president could have, at any time for months, simply returned the documents and avoided prosecution. But House Republicans do not want to talk about any of that. They seem incapable of assigning any agency or responsibility to Donald Trump for problems that are Trump's and Trump's alone. Witnesses were ultimately paid $250,000 each for their testimony, money raised in part by former Trump aide Kash Patel and paid via a check whose memo line reads, quote, for holding the line. And yet Republicans today will try to claim that it is the FBI and not these witnesses who are somehow corrupt. Republicans today will also attack President Biden, starting with the IRS investigation into Hunter Biden. They will ignore the fact that U.S. Attorney David Weiss had the authority to bring charges in any district he saw fit and was able to operate fully free of interference. They do not want to acknowledge that despite years of investigations, President Biden has not been found to have engaged in any wrongdoing. Instead, they'll try to convince you that Hunter Biden would have been charged with far more serious crimes had it not been for U.S. Attorney Weiss being blocked by the Biden political machine. Once again, when they do not like the outcome, they investigate the investigators and work to discredit the outcome. And Republicans will make false claims about the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, claiming that it is somehow censoring conservatives. In fact, the task force plays a key role in making sure that Russia, China, Iran, and other foreign entities cannot again interfere in our elections. According to committee Republicans, the task force's efforts to track and prevent foreign influence operations amount to attacks on conservative speech, a nonsensical claim considering that the Foreign Influence Task Force has nothing to do with censoring American free speech and, in fact, helps to ensure that American voices are heard by stopping Russian troll farms. Make no mistake, in making these claims, Republicans have all but rolled out the red carpet and begged Russia to once again interfere in our elections because they believe that doing so will get Trump reelected in 2024. And that is the goal of Republicans today.
Do you have any knowledge of Ray Epps being a secret government agent?
No. I will say this notion that somehow the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and agents is ludicrous and is a disservice to our brave, hardworking, dedicated men and women.
Director, I agree with you.
Director, I think it's quite rich that the guy that has accused you of lawlessness and weaponization is 400 days into violation of his own congressional subpoena over January 6th. Quite rich to me that you're hearing all of these allegations from somebody who won't even respond to a lawful subpoena. An hour and a half in, the use of the word laptop about 20 times. In fact, in the chairman's opening statement, he said that he's upset that he believes the FBI prevented more Americans from learning about a private citizen's laptop. That is bananas to me. You all are bringing up FISA every single question. You're essentially saying to the American people that you're guardians of personal security and privacy, but the 2020 election was determined because the FBI didn't let more Americans see a private citizen's non-consensual nudes? Is that what we're saying here? That you lost the election not because of your ideas, but because a private citizen's laptop
Do you want an answer? Will you
wasn't
yield?
out there?
Will you yield?
That's bananas. Like, you should be a party of ideas, not a party of non-consensual nudes to help you win an election.
Will you yield for an
answer? It seems
answer?
like that is what the objection is here today. We should be talking about the mass shootings that occurred over the last 10 days. Instead, this hearing has turned into absolute chaos. And I yield back.
Time of the gentleman's expired. We bring up FISA because it's up for reauthorization, if the gentleman didn't know, at the end of this year, and it was in our witness's opening statement.
Trump advisor Roger Stone was convicted in a federal court, correct?
That's my recollection.
Trump donor Elliot Brady was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Also my recollection.
The Attorney General at the time for those two convictions was Bill Barr. Which president nominated Bill Barr for Attorney General?
President Trump.
Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, was convicted on 2 separate occasions in a federal court, correct?
I believe that's correct.
The Attorney General at the time for Cohen's second conviction was Matthew Whitaker. Which president appointed Matthew Whitaker as acting Attorney General?
President Trump.
Okay. Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Yes.
Trump's former deputy campaign manager, Mr. Gates, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
That's my recollection.
Trump's campaign foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Yes, I think he pled guilty, yes.
The Attorney General at the time of those 3 cases was Jeff Sessions. Which president nominated Jeff Sessions for Attorney General?
President Trump.
You were the FBI director for all of those cases at the time. Which president nominated you?
President Trump.
Okay. What these facts show is we don't have a 2-tiered system of justice. We have one Department of Justice that goes after criminals regardless of party ideology. All of these folks were convicted under the administrations of 3 separate Republican attorneys general. It is not the fault of the FBI that Donald Trump surrounded himself with criminals. Donald Trump brought that upon himself. Thank you to the FBI for exposing the cesspool of corruption of these Trump associates.
Who were nominated by Republican President Bush for the position of Assistant Attorney General in the Criminal Division at the Department of Justice, and you were confirmed by a Republican Senate, if I am correct in that.
Yes, by unanimous voice vote.
And you were then nominated by Republican President Donald Trump to be the FBI director, and again confirmed by the Republican Senate for that position.
Yes, I think there were only 5 votes against me, and they were all from Democrats.
According to Wikipedia, you're still a registered Republican, and I hope you don't change your party affiliation after this hearing is over. But I want to thank you.
I love that final line. I hope you don't change your political affiliation after this is over. But I know that this hearing has been broken up into a multitude of clips all over the internet, especially on TikTok. But I wanted to show that full, just a little bit over 8 minutes clip. Once again, the GOP, as I keep saying, they're just going for sound bites. They're going for what's going to get them on the news that night so that they can just yell out into their echo chamber for additional votes while achieving nothing. For all of these conservatives that are sitting at home, I need for them to finally realize that the only money being wasted is the money being spent on these fake congressional hearings, because they're not accomplishing anything except for a lot of bravado. Because when these hearings are not televised, these people aren't doing this. These people aren't trying to, does the gentleman yield? Does the gentleman yield? Don't talk over people. They always want to talk over someone when that person is incorrect. But absolutely, this statement says it all. Absolutely. Because, yeah, it couldn't be me. It couldn't be me. I would be out of order every day, every single day. But the GOP is moving further and further towards the one, and I talked about this briefly last night, towards the one congressman that ever had his name turned into an ism. So let's take a look at McCarthyism and the current GOP.
Well, this day began with the announcement of the Emmy nominations, honoring some, but not all, of the very best work done on television in the last year, which makes it a fitting day to consider how much damage television has done in some of the places where we are allowed to point our cameras. I am speaking, of course, about what television has done to the congressional hearing as we approach the 70th year of television coverage of congressional hearings.
This hearing has turned into absolute chaos, and I yield back.
That happened at 11:39 a.m. today, 69 years after the first televised congressional hearing, which were, in their day, the ugliest hearings that the Congress had ever seen.
I beg your pardon. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
That was Boston Attorney Joseph Welch condemning Republican Senator Joseph McCarthy, the chairman of the first televised congressional hearings, which turned out to be an embarrassing week that ultimately brought shame and disgrace on Joe McCarthy and turned his name into an ism that for decades had as powerful a political ring as communism or fascism. McCarthyism. Joe McCarthy, who sunk into alcoholism and disgrace, is the only member of Congress in history whose name created a condemning label, McCarthyism. Joe McCarthy was running sham investigations in his committee and pushing completely fake accusations against innocent people and lying about it day in and day out. Most Republicans were embarrassed by Joe McCarthy in those days. The Republican president at the time, Dwight Eisenhower, wanted nothing to do with Joe McCarthy. In a few short years, the flames of McCarthyism burned out. But the televised congressional hearing was born thanks to Joe McCarthy. The year after the first televised McCarthy hearing came the first televised Senate confirmation hearing for a Supreme Court justice. Prior to that confirmation hearing, of that televised confirmation hearing, only 2 justices in the history of the Supreme Court had confirmation hearings. Confirmation hearings were not a thing until television made them a thing.
And just like McCarthy, it's nothing but witch hunts, sound bites, and look at me. Now, I don't know about you, but for me personally, that's not really a good way to spend tax dollars. Maybe finally nationalize education. Maybe finally do something to protect children from predators and gun violence while in class. Maybe do something for our elderly. Maybe nationalize free lunch. Oh, that's right. The GOP's current platform is to take away lunch from students. But they're okay with Greg Abbott taking away water breaks for construction workers. So I guess since the educational system within the United States is already set up to prepare children for factory work schedules, might as well prepare them to be hungry every day of the rest of their lives, because capitalism, capitalism. Now we know Marjorie Taylor Greene got kicked out of the Freedom Caucus. But did you know she had a little breakdown? She's not handling this well. She's not liking no longer being the golden vagina of the GOP. She wants her position back as HBSC of the Grand Old Party.
Welcome to What Was That? I'm Gabe Sanchez. Our beloved Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has once again made headlines, but this time it's not for her outlandish conspiracy theories or her bigoted taste in legislation. It's because she was expelled.
Expelled?
Yes, that is correct. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the queen of conspiracy theories, the mistress of misinformation, the wild child with a tinfoil hat, has been ousted from the Freedom Caucus.
That's what, baby! You're out of here!
Now, for those of you who don't know, the House Freedom Caucus is a group of ultra-conservative lawmakers who love to remind everyone just how Free they are. As long as you agree with their particular brand of freedom, that is. So when it comes to Marjorie Taylor Greene's expulsion, what was the straw that finally broke the camel's back? Was it her history of harassing school shooting survivors? Or when she made numerous transphobic, homophobic, and racist comments? Or was it when she claimed that the Democratic Party was a hotbed of pedophilia and Satanism? Or when she said that planes... Actually, it was none of those things. It was her recent fight on the House floor with Lauren Boebert where she called her a little bitch and then not only doubled down, but then tripled down on it in interviews. Bitch, 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 bitch. According to sources, Lauren Boebert actually defended Marjorie Taylor Greene's freedom of speech during the party's internal vote. However, because Boebert wouldn't share how she ultimately voted, something tells me that she would happily stab Green in the back. But let's just take a moment to appreciate the irony here. The Freedom Caucus, a group known for its far-right views, thought that Marjorie Taylor Greene was too extreme in her conduct on the House floor. That's like the Kool-Aid man telling you to take it easy on the sugar. Oh, yeah. Apparently, the way that Greene referred to Boebert was not the way that they expect their caucus members to refer to other fellow caucus members. So that's not okay, but this is?
Joe Biden, you're not a president. You're a piece of shit.
I mean, come on. Republicans, especially ones from this caucus, denigrate their colleagues almost daily, especially Lauren Boebert.
I was getting into an elevator with one of my staffers, and he and I we're leaving the Capitol. We're going back to my office, and we get in the elevator, and I see a Capitol police officer running hurriedly to the elevator. I see fret all over his face, and he's reaching, and I'm like, what? I can't, the door's shutting. Like, I can't open it. Like, what's happening? I look to my left, and there she is. Ilhan Omar. Whoops. And I said, well, she doesn't have a backpack. We should be fine.
You're going to tell me that this or any of the other numerous bigoted comments and jokes that Boebert has made while she's been a representative were not worthy of expulsion?
Give me a break.
Also, the fact that they expelled Green but are happy to keep George Anthony Qatar Ravash Zabrowski de Boulder Santos, who has been indicted on 13 felony counts, tells you everything you need to know about who they are. But what do you expect? They're happy to support Trump despite the fact that he's been indicted in 2 separate cases for a total of 71 felony charges with more.
I keep telling y'all, this was not about conduct. It wasn't about conduct. Lauren Boebert is the new golden child. She's the new golden vagina. And from Boebert and MTG, the former besties, now adversaries, to DeSantis, who, even with a personality transplant, just can't be held. But he's gotten some bad news, some help from his wife, who I'm beginning to wonder if she's really the Svengali behind all of this. I don't know why she would want to embarrass him like this. I don't know. Maybe she secretly thinks that she's Melania. I don't know. But somebody go fix those caterpillars on her face. I mean, eyebrows. But let's take a look.
Michael Popak, Legal AF. Ever heard of third-party voter registration organizations, 3PVROs? Well, you're going to hear about them on this hot take. Ron DeSantis's consistent assault on voting rights in Florida, and what a federal judge in the Northern District of Florida, the chief judge, Mark Walker, has once again set up a firewall to protect democracy from fascists like Ron DeSantis going after 3PVROs because he doesn't want them registering Democrats and independents. So he's putting up more and more barriers, just as he has before, to First Amendment, 14th Amendment constitutional rights of people and the voters of Florida. What are you scared of, Ron DeSantis? You're afraid if there's more registration and easier access to the ballot box, more voter participation, then you won't win the governorship again, or you won't win the presidency. You're probably right about that. But this isn't the way to do it. And you have reached, again, your what looks to be your arch nemesis, which is the chief judge of the Northern District of Florida up in Tallahassee, the state capital. Mark Walker, who over the last 4 or 5 years has really been lighting the torch of liberty about voting rights. He's a voting right fanatic in a positive way, and he makes sure that Florida hews to the straight and narrow and doesn't violate the constitutional rights of its citizens and doesn't find continued ways to undermine voter participation. In the current case brought by the NAACP and a Hispanic group, both of which are responsible for getting out the vote, voter registration, voter information to get people engaged and voting. Sounds like a good thing, but not in Ron DeSantis's Florida. It's a bad thing. And there was a law that was about to take effect on July 1st, except Judge Walker issued his injunction in that case, NAACP versus Cobb Bird up in Florida, which says that the law that was being proposed, which would have done two things. One, it would have made every person who's involved with voter registration would have to be an American citizen. I'm not talking about illegal aliens here, okay? But under Ron DeSantis's law that his rubber stamping legislature passed, in order to have the job, to get paid, to go out and knock on doors and other engagements to get voter participation and voter registration to happen, you'd have to be an American citizen. Not enough if you were here on a legal, proper immigration status, whatever that was, green card and otherwise. If you have a green card or otherwise, except for some limited statuses.
This week in Ron DeSantis's failed presidential campaign, they rolled out Florida Governor Ron DeSantis's wife, none other than Grandpa Munster. Casey DeSantis. Wrong picture. Either way, they decided they were going to roll out this Mamas for DeSantis, which aptly targets Moms for Liberty, because where there's one terrorist, there's another. In her completely out of touch with reality style choice of her Mamas for DeSantis t-shirt, camo pants, a blowout, and beige heels? What is happening here? It's almost like the gays are trying to sabotage the campaign from the inside out? Or did Ron tell her this was in style? He should have just lent her his boots. I bet you they share clothes all the time. In the meantime, all over the country, everybody is fleeing from Ron DeSantis. His poll numbers are down to like 15%. He absolutely does not stand a chance of advancing in any way, shape, or form at this point. And his donors have also gotten the memo. And the money going into his campaign is slowly trickling to a stop. And I love this for Ron because it couldn't happen to a more hateful piece of shit.
Some news out of Florida that really doesn't bode well for Ron DeSantis or Republicans writ large in the state. Many Republican women are now saying that they plan to switch parties after Ron DeSantis signed a new law that rolls back and restricts some alimony in the state, including by allowing judges to reduce or terminate alimony and support payments. In particular, ex-spouses who pay alimony will now be empowered to change that when they retire. A coalition of women, including some Republican women who depend on alimony, have come out to say that they will lose everything because of this new law. DeSantis has just...
No shit, Sherlock. We keep telling people that they're voting against their own best interest, but they don't believe it. They believe it's going to happen to that person over there, that person over there, that person over there, because they believe that they have the complexion for protection, or because their race and gender makes them the default damsel in distress. They forget that the most lethal person to them is the person that they look at across the table, the person who is convincing them to back them 100% no matter what. And yeah, Casey DeSantis definitely thinks that she's Melania Trump, because what the hell was that outfit? If you're going to go for the Mamas for DeSantis with Moms for Liberty, they tout themselves as uber Christian soccer moms. That is not the soccer mom uniform. It's not even the ladies of the Nazi movement uniform, which we also know. Moms for Liberty. It's just Daughters of the Confederacy 2.0. And Daughters of the Confederacy just laid the groundwork for the women who decided to, like Coco Chanel, back the Nazis. Yeah, we're not done for the night. This is going to be a long one, y'all. Now I know you've heard the Tuberville take, but let's play the video once more because there's something that I don't think many people notice. Let's take a look.
Now, first of all, I'm totally against any type of racism, okay? If people think that a white nationalist is a racist, I agree with that. I agree they
A white
should.
nationalist is someone who believes that the white race is superior to other races.
Well, that's some people's opinion. And I don't think,
That's
I mean,
not
a lot.
opinion.
Pardon?
What's your opinion?
My opinion of a white nationalist, if somebody wants to call him white nationalist, to me is an American.
Senator Tuberville, in addition to falsely saying that Democrats want crime, that's a quote, they want crime, they want reparations. That is the discussion about whether descendants of slaves should be paid reparations. They want reparations because they think the people that do the crime are owed that. That is, Caitlin, the most abjectly racist statement I have heard from a U.S. senator in my life.
Okay, so a couple of things on this. Can we first just have a wee chuckle at the irony of a Republican accusing Democrats of this?
Calling people nationalists, white nationalists is just another word that they want to use other than racism. I'm totally against anything to do with racism. But the thing about being a white nationalist is just a cover word for the Democrats now, where they can use it to try to make people mad across the country. Identity politics. I'm totally against that.
Poisonous lie of equity, wokeness, and identity politics.
This woke mind virus. Woke tyranny.
Big media, big government, even big business have locked arms to advance a pernicious woke agenda designed to control the American people.
You can't just say let it go, because then we're going to be living under an oppressive wokeocracy.
Woke supremacy is as bad as white supremacy.
Wokeness is a virus more dangerous than any pandemic, hands down.
And secondly, for those of you who aren't familiar with Mr. Tuberville here, let me give you the cliff notes on why this should come as absolutely no surprise, seeing as he once equated descendants of slaves to criminals at a Trump rally.
This morning, there's new backlash to comments made by first-term Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, who spoke at a rally hosted by Trump in Nevada on Saturday evening. Tuberville made these racially charged remarks.
The Democratic Party, they have a majority. They could stop this crime today. Some people say, well, they're soft on crime. No, they're not soft on crime. They're pro-crime. They want crime. They want crime because they want to take over what you got. They want to control what you have. They want reparation because they think the people that do the crime are owed that.
While appearing on CNN, the Alabama senator discussed comments he made in regards to white nationalists in the military, which host Caitlin Collins asked him to clarify, as if they weren't already clear enough.
Do you believe they should allow white nationalists in the military?
Well, they call them that. I call them Americans.
Now, Tuberville tried to act as if he didn't understand what a white nationalist was. He tried to backpedal slightly his comments. That man is a senator out of Alabama. He is 68 years old. He is older than desegregation in this country. He was alive during Jim Crow. He knows full well what a white nationalist is. That's why he's trying to flip the narrative and put white nationalism into this woke culture war. Don't let them fool you. Do not let them fool you, because I'm so tired of the narrative that I've heard my entire life, that old people just don't know. We got to protect the old people. Please, 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 please. They live longer than the rest of us. They have lived through so many changes in their life. They did not just turn up feeble-minded when they are not living with dementia or Alzheimer's. Stop this because somebody gets to a certain age. They don't know any better, because if that's the case, let's empty out Capitol Hill. Stop giving excuses to meemaws and papaws regarding their problematic verbiage, actions, and ideologies. They know exactly what they're doing. Do not infantilize somebody who will tell you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps because they were able to go to Sears and Roebuck after purchasing a plot of land for $50 and build a house there. And then turn their nose up at you because you're not a homeowner in this economy. Do not infantilize somebody who could go to college for free, sign up for the military, get a GI Bill that's going to give them a home if they decided not to buy a home kit and build one. Old age does not, you don't turn 60 and get stupid. He knows good and damn well what a white nationalist is. That's why he said, I call him a patriot. Because he wants to change the narrative. Because if he can change the narrative, then January 6th wasn't all that bad. The Proud Boys ain't that bad. The 3%ers ain't that bad. The KKK ain't that bad. He ain't that bad. They're tired of hiding in plain sight. They want that fear factor back, but they one thing that they don't realize is that we learned from the Black Panther Party. We learned from Malcolm. We learned from Marcus Garvey. We learned from Assata Shakur. We're not playing those games anymore. Yeah, he does agree. He's also mad at me. Now let's get into this Hollywood strike.
So yesterday, some studio executives told the press that they were planning on waiting out the Writers Guild until October, when writers will lose our apartments and homes and become homeless, and then be forced to come back to the table and take a bad deal. Now, first of all, I cannot believe that they said this. They took the mask off. They told on themselves bigger than anyone I have ever seen, but also they are dead fucking wrong, because writers are in this for the long haul. We have a strike fund that we use to support other writers who are on hard times. We are raising money for crew members and other people affected by the strike. And most importantly, we know that if we do not get a fair deal, we will not have jobs to go back to. So we are not going to leave this picket line. We are going to keep withholding our labor until the companies come back to the table and make a fair deal. And they're going to do that. You know why? Because they need us. Every dollar they make begins with us. So they are not starving us out. We are starving them out. And until they come back to the table, there will be no writing.
Really important that this negotiation be covered, because the eyes of the world, and particularly the eyes of labor, are upon us. What happens here is important, because what's happening to us is happening across all fields of labor, by means of when employers make Wall Street and greed their priority, and they forget about the essential contributors that make the machine run. We have a problem, and we are experiencing that right at this moment. This is a very seminal hour for us. It came with great sadness that we came to this crossroads, but we had no choice. We are the victims here. We are being victimized by a very greedy entity. I am shocked by the way the people that we have been in business with are treating us. I cannot believe it, quite frankly. How far apart we are on so many things. How they plead poverty, that they're losing money left and right when giving hundreds of millions of dollars to their CEOs. It is disgusting. Shame on them. They stand on the wrong side of history at this very moment. We stand in solidarity, in unprecedented unity. Our union and our sister unions and the unions around the world are standing by us, as well as other labor unions. Because at some point, the jig is up. You cannot keep being dwindled and marginalized and disrespected and dishonored. The entire business model has been changed by streaming, digital, AI. This is a moment of history that is a moment of truth. If we don't stand tall right now, we are all going to be in trouble. We are all going to be in jeopardy of being replaced by machines and big business. Who cares more about Wall Street than you and your family? Most of Americans don't have more than $500 in an emergency. This is a very big deal, and it weighed heavy on us. But at some point, you have to say, no, we're not going to take this anymore. You people are crazy.
I think that when Bob Iger talks about what a shame it is, he needs to remember that in 1980, CEOs like him made 30 times what their lowest worker was making. Now Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is. And I think that's a shame, Bob. And maybe you should take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, why is that? And not only why is that, is it okay? Is it morally okay? Is it ethically okay that you make that much more than your lowest worker? And if so, why? Why is that okay? If your response is that that's just the way business is done now, that's just the way corporations work now, well, that sucks, and that makes you a person if that's your answer. So you should come up with a better answer than that.
We all remember back in the day there was 22 episodes. It would start in the fall and we'd all watch that, and there was like 9 months of work. Now they have this new thing, streaming short series, 10 episodes. It takes like 4 or 5 months to do it. You do that in good faith, you agree to it, you say that, and then they hold that show. Decide whenever they want to drop it all at once, and then they can wait 1, 2, even 3 years to let you know if you're even picked up. Not even if the show's picked up, if you're going to be picked up on that show. That's painful. That's painful.
One of the things that our contract provides is protection from sexual harassment.
Thank you.
If I told you that in a prior negotiation, we presented the AMPTP with basically a gift outlining things that they could do that would not only protect us from sexual harassment and from terrible situations, but would protect them from liability.
Yes.
If I told you that we provided them with a gift like that, would you be surprised if they turned it down? We were.
We were.
Would you be surprised that we needed to revisit some of that again 3 years later? We were.
Yep.
The motherfucker who said we're going to keep this thing going until people start losing their houses and their apartments. Listen to me, motherfucker. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. Some of it is financial, some of it is karma, and some of it is just figuring out who the f said that. And we know who said that. And where he lives. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. You wish that on people. You wish that families starve while you're making $27 million a year for creating nothing. Be careful, motherfucker. Be really careful. Because that's the kind of that stirs up. Peace out.
I want to know where all the 1% bootlickers are right now. The ones that told us when the submersible imploded to have compassion for those that don't give a fuck about us. Now, I do want to say this. The one thing that unifies us all are the wealthy. I'm not talking about the rich, the wealthy, and how the wealthy treats us all. Because the wealthy don't give a fuck about the rich, the upper middle class, the lower middle class, or the poor. The wealthy just want to continue to be wealthy. Iger feels like he's going to end up in the poorhouse if he pays people fairly, because he can't get these absorbent dividends at the end of the year, as if he doesn't already possess enough wealth that generations to come under his lineage still won't burn through them. Now, there's a 1%er family that they pass down to one another paranoia of ever becoming poor. The same people that try to tell you it's okay to be poor, just keep working at it, ended up imploding. And so many of these family members committed suicide out of their fear of living how you and I live, because that's how they view poor. So before anybody fixes their faces to go, but Taz, these actors and actresses are all millionaires. First of all, not all of them. It's just like assuming that every attorney and every doctor is rolling in the dough. But second of all, they don't give a damn about them either. They don't want to pay them either. Even the writers that you know about, that you can recognize their name and put a face to their name, they don't want to pay them either. The top 1% does not give a fuck about anybody below. Look at what the top 1% is doing to SCOTUS. Look at what the top 1% is doing to congressmen and congresswomen. They don't care. They put all that money in the pockets of Associate Justice Alito, Kavanaugh, Thomas, all of them. And as they're getting exposed, what are they doing? And you think they don't have the money and the power to protect their assets? Everyone but them is expendable. And what did we learn from the submissible? They don't even trust nor talk to each other nor protect one another. How many stories did we go over? And that was just a drop in the bucket of how unsafe the submersible was and how many of the top 1%ers knew it but didn't tell another one. So once again, instead of fangirling over France and then criticizing marginalized people, Black and brown people in the United States for demonstrating the same way that they do, are we finally all going to come together, get our plates out, get our silverware out, get our glasses out, and finally eat the rich? Are we finally going to come together and force our representation to properly tax those so the rest of us can live instead of existing to survive? Because I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the damn face. If you can go off on your kids' teachers because they're not willing to do the job you're supposed to do at home, if you're willing to go off on the McDonald's worker because your fries wasn't hot enough or they're too damn salty, or you're willing to go off and ask for every damn manager at every damn retailer because you want to use a coupon that expired in 1999, you can finally pop off at the people whose salaries you legitimately pay, the people whose universal health care you pay for. The same people who tell us universal health care ain't gonna work, they are benefiting from it. The same people who try to convince you that socialism won't work, we are providing them with socialism. It is time for us to stop working for politicians. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. It is time for them to finally work for us instead of using politics as a manner of establishing generational wealth for themselves. How are you serving the public and you put yourself in a tax bracket that makes you unable to relate to the public? Because as soon as that tax bracket goes up, they forget growing up poor. Or they'll tell you in all the campaign ads, but you can tell by how they act and how they move, they've forgotten. They conveniently get amnesia. They'll be fighting for all this legislation to make it easier to pull yourself up by the bootstraps until they get those bootstraps pulled up by someone else. And then they kick off those boots and set them on fire. and then tell you something's wrong with you. When Trump ran the last time for president, the GOP had no platform. That should never happen. First of all, we should have never gone to a two-party system. But that's a conversation for another day. But an entire political party should not have candidates on the ballot and not have a platform. But people have gotten into treating politicians as if they're comic book action figures, as if they're Pokemon cards. I'm on the side of this one. My team can beat yours. This isn't WrestleMania. This is legitimately your life, the life of your relatives, your friends on the line. But we want to act like it's MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch for entertainment purposes only? But when you do that, you end up with people saying dumb shit like this on the House floor.
My amendment has nothing to do with whether or not colored people or black people or anybody can serve, okay? It has nothing to do with color of your skin, any of that stuff. What we want to preserve and maintain is the fact that our military does not become a social experiment. We want the best of the best. We want to have standards that guide who's in what unit, what they do. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the North Koreans, they are not doing this because they want the strongest military possible. I hope my colleagues on the other side can understand what we're doing. Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, asking to be recognized to have the words colored people.
For what purposes generally seek recognition?
I'd like to be recognized to have the words colored people stricken from the record. I find it offensive and very inappropriate.
Some of y'all need to have some serious conversations with your mimas and your papas because it is 2003. It is not 1856, and we do not have time for this tomfoolery. On the floor of Congress, just with his whole chest. Oh, you don't believe me? Let me show you this C-SPAN recording. I'm sharing this for my Mayo-tinted brethren because I know that the black folks are tired. I see why you're tired.
Arizona. Well, Mr. Chairman, though that was unbelievably inspiring. My amendment has nothing to do with whether or not colored people or black people or anybody can serve, okay? It has nothing to do with color of your skin, any of that stuff. What we want to preserve and maintain is the fact that our military does not become a social experiment. We want the best of the best. We want to have standards that guide who's in what unit, what they do. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the North Koreans, they are not doing this because they want the strongest military possible. I hope my colleagues on the other side can understand what we're doing. Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, asking to be recognized to have the words colored people.
For what purposes generally seek recognition?
I'd like to be recognized to have the words colored people stricken from the record. I find it offensive and very inappropriate, to say the least.
Is the gentlelady asking for unanimous consent to take down the words?
I am asking for unanimous consent to take down the words of referring to me or any of my colleagues as colored people.
For what purposes, the gentleman from Arizona?
Can I amend my comments to people of color?
The gentleman wishes to amend his comments.
No, wait.
Is the gentleman asking consent?
Mr. Speaker, to have the words stricken. I didn't ask for an amendment.
Is there unanimous consent to have the words stricken? Without objection, so ordered.
Just next Sunday after your church, just sit the whole family down together and explain Explain? No.
They don't need it explained to them. They don't need it explained to them. They do it on purpose. They do it on purpose. Conservatism is conserving one way of life. One way of life. But did you catch how they kept trying to cut her off? What is it that you want? She was trying to tell you what she wanted. Oh, well, we could just amend the words. No, you didn't mean people of color. You didn't mean people of color at all. But this is what happens when even caught in 4K, you still let it stand. What happened before? What's the context? Well, if they would have just complied. Oh, I don't think that was so bad. Oh, that's not racist. Oh, no. You're being racist towards me and I'm white. Let's take a look at a little history factoid so we can all woosah.
When the first black saint was attacked by a group of robbers while praying in a monastery, he tied 4 of them together, dragged them into the main hall, and forced them to become monks themselves. When the enormous man of immense physical strength was just a child, he was enslaved by a local official in Egypt. But suspected of theft, he was thrown out of the house and left to fend for himself in the streets. Turning to a life of crime, he fell in with a notorious band of thieves, and proving exceptionally useful in a fight, was quickly made the leader of the 75 men. When he once went to rob a house in the middle of the night, he swam across the crocodile-infested waters of the Nile River while holding a sword in between his teeth. But when the homeowner's dog alerted the man to his presence, he was hunted down by the local authorities and forced to hide in a monastery to escape. When the monks found him, he was so impressed by their kindness they became a brother himself, and it's said that so sudden a conversion from vice to virtue was never before witnessed. Walking 20 miles a day while fasting in the hot sun to bring water to his elderly brethren, he became known as one of the Desert Fathers, some of the most important figures in the early church. And it's said that his dedication to defeating demons was so great, he would even sleep standing up without closing his eyes. Rising to lead dozens of men, he told his followers, "You fast, but Satan does not eat. You labor tirelessly, but Satan never sleeps. The only dimension in which you can outperform Satan is humility, for Satan has none." When he turned 75, a second group of robbers advanced upon his monastery, this time in unbeatable numbers. But ordering the other monks to flee, he stayed behind, saying he wished to fulfill the Lord's teaching that those who live by the sword shall perish by it. When you're the mightiest monk to go from mayhem to martyr, they don't just call you the first black saint. They call you Saint Moses the Ethiopian.
As always, the more you know. Oh, yeah. They enjoyed cutting her mic and acting really, really stupid. They always act stupid when it comes to racism. Oh, we know there's racist. Oh, my goodness. We shouldn't say that. Now, I know this following question is geared towards the MAGA crowd, the Magadonians, as they now call themselves. Ay, caramba. But I want you to really listen and take it in and really think about this and mull it over.
How many people have noticed this about MAGAs? And if you're a MAGA and have an actual reply, I would love to hear it. Why is it defending free speech in the First Amendment when Nazis march, but not when a black man peacefully kneels to protest racism? Why is it Blue Lives Matter when a white cop kills an unarmed black child, but not when a black cop kills an armed insurrectionist trying to overthrow our democracy? Why is it law and order when a black prosecutor defends the officers who killed Breonna Taylor actually slept in her home while she was innocent, but not law and order when a black prosecutor merely investigates Trump? Do you see the problem here? If you're defending Nazis, white cops who kill unarmed black children, and white insurrectionists, but condemning black peaceful protesters, black cops, and black prosecutors, it's not free speech or law and order you're defending, it's white supremacy.
I'm going to take it a step further. It's also the same reason why you get the regurgitation of racial tropes, of racial stereotypes, because there haven't been any new stereotypes or tropes. It's the same ones from the beginning. And that's because they never let go of that beginning ideology. So they want to keep saying that racism is dead, but no, racism is handed down like a damn family heirloom. Hence, everyone that's racist having the same stories, saying the same things, reacting the same ways. Because in their mind, if it ain't white, it ain't right. If it ain't white, it ain't all the way human. No different than why the police force is so much more egregious towards melanated individuals. Because when you start off as slave catchers, what else would you be? And don't you dare tell their secret from the inside, because it's supposed to be one solidarity behind the blue line. If one has the blue flu, they all have the blue flu. Didn't know they were Smurfs. But it looks like, allegedly, they've taken out one of their own. Again, I guess Serpico wasn't as inspiring as everyone was led to believe.
I very quickly foresee this as being an unsolved case. This right here is former police officer Mark LaSure. He was the police officer who spoke out in Memphis against the Scorpion group and has made moves to truly make police reform. He was found unalived in his driveway.
Well, the Omega Sci-Fi chapter at Lemoyne-Owen College says Mark LaShore joined their fraternity just last year. They describe their brother as a man of perseverance.
Will be missed. A lot of brothers love him as soon as he walked in.
2 months ago, friend and fraternity brother Antonio Avant says 57-year-old Mark LaShore celebrated a turning point in his life, graduating from Lemoyne-Owen College with a bachelor's in criminal justice. LaShore pledged the Omega Sci-Fi fraternity in fall of 2022.
Again, for a man to try to exemplify perseverance and show his son that he can still go to school at the age that he did and graduate. Again, you don't hear about too many people coming into our fraternity at the age of 57 in an undergraduate chapter.
Avant says what makes this loss even more difficult is because coming into their fraternity, LaShore was a man who did so much for the community.
From him being a school resource officer with the Memphis Police Department, and he actually, on his own time, coached golf with some for Tredsman, and also I coached his son.
Memphis police were called to a home on Falcon Street in Westwood early Sunday morning. Investigators have not positively identified the man officers found there or said how he died. Avant says Omega Sci-Fi is focused on remembering LaShore for the man he was.
We've lost a great brother, even though he wasn't in the fraternity that long. He actually, as soon as he came in, started working and doing what he's supposed to do.
Now, you can say what you want, but what are the odds that a man who speaks out against a group of police officers doing horrible crimes and beating people and unaliving people just winds up laying in his driveway, dead? Let's see if this gets solved.
No. Because if you're investigating yourself, you're not going to turn yourself in. That's why it has taken DNA testing kits to catch some of these serial killers, because they were cops. And cops will do everything that they can, even beyond their power, to ensure they're not incarcerated with the people that they sent off to jail and prison. But when you're not taught the law and you're hyped up to believe that you were above the law, accountability can feel like a death sentence. So you'd rather play executioner than pay the piper. But as always, thank you for joining me here in Conversations with Taz, and thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit longer. As always, make sure you check out the links in the description of this video. And if you did enjoy tonight's show or any other broadcast, please bring a friend with you next time. And if you enjoy movies, you'll enjoy today's final clip. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. I'll see you all Sunday night.
I've spent the past 7 years traveling the world perfecting my craft. You see, I'm something of a magician, inventor, and chocolate maker. So quiet up and listen down. Nope, scratch that. Reverse it.
Mr. Wonka, I can see you're a man of great ingenuity. What are you doing?
I'm making chocolate, of course. How do you like it? Dark, white, nutty, absolutely insane.
Many people have come here to sell chocolate. They've all been crushed by the chocolate cartel. You can't get a shop without selling chocolate, and you can't sell chocolate without a shop.
No daydreaming.
What are we gonna do, Willie?
Huh.
Huh?
Huh.
A double huh.
Do you have a pencil and paper?
Uh-huh.
I got an idea. I know things haven't been easy for you. They're gonna get better.
You promise?
I pinky promise. That's the most solemn vow there is.
Where do we start?
A good chocolate chip is simple.
Where's this? It's just weird.
What's happening? Who wants a chocolate that makes it fly?
Let's find out, shall we?
Who's for a hammer Nothing to see here. Just a small group of people defying the laws of gravity.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Gallery Gourmet, my name is Willy Wonka.
He's good. Too good. Pretty sure I've gained about 150 pounds in the last 2 weeks.
You could change her life, Mr. Wonka. Change all their lives.
Run away!
Every good thing in this world started with a dream. So you hold on to yours.
Here we go, Mama.
Mark my words, this is gonna be the greatest chocolate shop the world has ever seen. You're the funny little man who's been following me.
I will have you know that I am a perfectly respectable size for an Oompa Loompa.
An Oompa what now?
Allow me to refresh your memory.
Oh, I don't think I want to hear that.
Too late. I've started dancing now. Once we've started, we can't stop.